Hey, welcome back. It's another video in the matter of like never. So I built a door. It's for the outside shed. So this is where my dust collector and my air compressor is going to go. It's not finished, but that's a door. And before you say anything, I know that's going the wrong way. That's under compression, not tension. It should go the other way first, so it's under tension. Don't care. Uh, it's half lapped. It has OSB. I mean, this thing's not going to move, so I'm not too worried about that. The reason the door isn't finished is because this side is not finished. So once I finish this side and it matches everything over here, then everything will get buttoned up. But I'm not done with the shed, so I can't do the outside. But I figured I'd show you the door, how I built it, what went into it, how it's all done. I know this is not going to be your conventional door build because I do a lot of things that are specific to this scenario. So like the hinges and where they place and this and the other. So don't get too upset when you're like, that's not how it's done. I know it's not how it's done. It's just how I did it for this application. But yeah, that's my door. It's super simple. Yeah, let's get into the video. Alright, so starting the build, let me walk you through how I've done all this. Alright, first thing I do is I chop off one end of my lumber because I want to make sure I have a nice flat square end to start with. And nothing really comes square and flat from the factory, so after that first end is chopped off, then I'll actually cut it to rough length. And this is just to make sure I have room for error because, well, that happens. Marking out the lines for the length. So first I get where I want to mark the lines, then I grab, my boards I'm going to be using. So in this case, these are my upper rails, and the one on the bench is the vertical style rail, whatever it's called. I actually use my actual lumber. I don't measure it with tape measure, then mark that. I just use my actual lumber that I'm using. That way I know my measurements are accurate and they are good. Okay, let's say you're marking a board and you have a marker here. A lot of people would like color in like that. Well, when you're cutting that line, where exactly are you cutting it? The top, bottom. So like, just a helpful tip: have a sharp pencil. These things work just fine. You can use a mechanical 0.5. If you sharpen this every time, it'll be fine. It's a very sharp point, and it has its own little sharpener. So whatever. Just make a nice little small little tick. Then, if you have to go with the bigger line, you know, put your pencil on the line, slide this up to it, then score the line that way. Again, you shouldn't be coloring like that. It's not sidewalk chalk. Um, so can you see that? So, no, yes, no. So, there you go. Yep, let's go get food. Alright, so once everything's done, again, I just did my uppers, now I'm doing my sides. I start, again, chopping off the end, measuring it down to length, and what I'm doing here is actually cut both of them at the same time. So I line up the ends so they're nice and flush with each other. Then I just slide everything down, get my line pretty much where it's going to be on the table saw, go back to the end, make sure the ends are still flush to each other. That way, instead of cutting two boards and inducing the error twice, I cut once on two boards, and then that just makes sure that everything is the same. So even if they're off a little bit, at least they're the same. So my stop block doesn't go all the way to the end of the table there, so I couldn't just use the stop block for that. And I find this is the best way to make sure that everything is good to go and you have the boards at the exact same length. And setting up for drilling the holes, because when you're drilling at the end grain, you obviously don't want to just drill, you might miss line. So take the board, score a line, that way you know exactly where to put your marks. Drill through, use a countersink on this. I'm using just regular wood grade 1.5" screws. Nothing too terribly fancy. Smear some glue on it, spread it around a little bit. I'm not going for a total glue squeeze out here. Obviously, I want some, but the mechanical fastener of the screw is going to be what really holds it till the glue dries. So again, this is the door jamb. Not really that in depth on that one. Put everything together, flip it over, do the other three sides. So make sure everything's nice and like secured. Make sure both ends are flushed up really nice. And then just put on some corner clamps. Just make sure everything's nice
and square all the way across. I didn't running a tape measure all the way across, corner to corner, and they were both the same, so it's nice to know that after everything, it's still square. I did not actually make these the same width. They came from the factory. This is just construction grade from Lowe's or Home Depot, whatever. This is door jam. It doesn't have to be perfect. So that's why this is, you know, kind of like that. You didn't see me run it through the table saw because I didn't. Okay.
So the God, sweating. The interior top and bottom measure about 35 and 16th. Not about, it actually did measure 35 and 16th. So I'm going to cut the door width to 35. Yes, I give me a 16th overall so a 32nd overall on both sides. So what I will probably end up doing, I'm gonna make it 35 inches end to end, top and bottom. If I have to shave some off, then I can do it on the table saw and just like run it through and like shave just a little bit off. So that's the plan, is do 35 total top and bottom. One question you may be asking yourself is, what are you going to use to build the door? Well, the best material on earth, construction grade lumber of 2x4s. So obviously we have to mill it down, join it, plane it, get everything parallel, whatever. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to cut these. I'm going to cut everything over. So these are supposed to be 35 on the runners. I think they're called runners on the top and the bottom. I think the stiles are the vertical parts. Pretty sure. So yeah, we're going to cut these to about 36. The width overall is going to make a difference. But if I were to do the actual like styles, that does matter. Because if I do a half lap or if I do some sort of like tongue and groove or, you know, something like that, that has to be exact. So the length, not so much. The height, sure, that's, you know, whatever. But the actual width of it, like the thickness, that does matter. And also this thickness here, because I went with these because I'm going to put off the rounded edges. That was yours, nice and flat and square and everything else. But yeah, so that's the plan. All right.
So here I am again, just cutting on the 2x4s. Same as did for the door jamb. I'm just cutting them a little bit long. Just trying to get everything right.
Just for the record, this wood is like extremely wet because it's, you know, crap wood from Lowe's, but whatever. This exterior door is going to see the elements, never going to come inside.
Oh, dude, how you gonna wear all that? Yes or no? Dude, how you gonna wear that? Yes or no, Daddy?
Yes, you can.
No, Daddy, how you gonna wear?
Yes, you can cut your finger. You gotta be careful, okay?
That's what they use. How you gonna wear?
No, I cut my finger on a different piece of metal, but that was a good question.
Oh, like what one?
The metal for the roof in the back of the garage.
Oh, I got it now.
I had to clean up the saw blade just because it's been in a box, and when they put it in the box, they put the oil on top of it and it leaked, so it had oil all over it. So I had to clean that up.
All right, so in case you were wondering how we're going to go from rough dimensions to nice square, I mean, look at this. Look at this squareness. Let's go on the long side. See that? Wait for it. Boom. Any gaps? If it could focus, I don't know. Nope. This camera sucks. Okay, anyway, yeah, you get the point. Nice, square. Okay, so if you remember how we're going to go from rough lumber to nice joint board, all right, the way we're going to do it is not your typical way of doing it, all right? We're going to send them through the table saw, just taking off a small smidge, getting that round over. Then we're going to take them, flip them 180, send them back to the table saw to get the other 90-degree edge, the other round edge knocked over. Right. Then we're going to send them through the planer. And we're going to call it, it's called skip planing, where you plane them on one side, flip the board over, send them again, flip the board over, send it again, flip the board over, send it again. All right. So that's called skip planing. Normally, yes, you would put one pass through the joiner, then make a 90-degree edge on the joiner, then square up on the table saw. But we, being the royal we, me, myself, and I, we're not going to do that because I'm too lazy to keep on moving the dust collector from tool to tool to tool. Plus, right now, my joiner has a bunch of screws on it, for my other projects, so I'm just being lazy and not doing that. But in the end, all our boards are nice and square and parallel, so that's all you can ask for. Again, not your typical way of doing it, so if you're looking to build fine furniture, don't do it that way. But for a door that's going outside for a shed in the back of my garage, nobody's gonna see but me, I figured that's good enough. All right. Next we are going to cut some half laps. I think we'll just do half laps. I think that's what we're going to do. Cut some half laps. Yeah. I don't know. I gotta think about that. But we're gonna cut some joinery and get all the frame mocked up for the door. We're going to put in an X brace on the door. It's not gonna be a full X. It's more gonna be a slash.
Going to the other blade, so this is my flat tooth blade. Cut the half laps. Got to clean up again, oil everywhere. So what I'm doing here, the boards are still over dimensioned, so they're long. So I put the blade where I think it's roughly halfway, run it through, flip it over, run it through, flip it over. And then raise the blade, lower the blade. And that gives you a pretty good half lap all the way across. So now I'm actually cutting them to full dimension. And you're using the board again to measure out the half lap, so I know exactly which ones are going where. So use the board, use the marking knife. I ended up using it differently. I ended up, just using the square to mark them in the other boards, but super simple. On the half lap again, sometimes the flat tooth blade, I don't push it through correctly, and I get lazy and try going faster and taking fewer passes. So you have a couple, stray hairs. That's what I'm doing here. Just cleaning them up with, some hand tools, and after that's done, I'll go at it with a sandpaper on just a nice wooden block, just to get everything nice and smooth. Nothing too terribly fancy with that. And I sanded down all the half laps just to make sure it was nice, smooth, flatness. So when I glue them and clamp them together, they had good connection between all joints and parts and everything else. Again, don't go crazy, just knock off some of the high spots. Now it's time for gluing them up. It's easy. Lay everything out, put the glue where you want, have your clamps ready. Again, you have good open time with this, but I'm also dealing with a long door, so I have to get some longer clamps for the actual height of the door. So I have to didn't have a pipe clamp long enough, and none of my parallel clamps are long enough, so I just connected two of them together, tightened everything up, and then after that was all good to go, I went back with a square, just double checked all my corners, make sure everything was still good to go. For drilling out the recesses, now normally you would have the stiles vertical. I put them horizontal just because I'll show you in a minute, but if I put them vertical, the door dimensions weren't what I wanted. I wanted more of a flat door than a thick door, so that's why I decided to put these horizontal. Put that little template jig up there, super simple. I don't know where I got that one from, Amazon or somewhere, but it's great for door hinges. You have all different sizes, just screw it to it, then you have a little flush trim bit with your router with the bearing on it, then you just hollow out the inside, and yeah, just nothing to do it but to do it. So super simple, just route it out, and make sure you set your depth correctly, the first time. If you go too deep, then your hinges will be recessed too far into the door. So I always err on the side of caution, so I make them maybe a little bit shy, so the actual hinge sits a little bit proud. So right there I'm just testing to make sure the hinge is nice and flush. And if it's good to go, then it's good to go. It's hard to set it like you normally would because you actually have the elevation of the jig. So you can't just put the hinge on the router then raised up to make it even. You have to adjust it a little bit because you have the elevation from the hinge there. I did corner clamps. I think just punched out the corners to begin with. Then I realized that was not going to work because this is set up again for using the hinges with the stiles in the vertical because they're horizontal. I'm like, wait, that's too much overlap. So I had to go in with the chisel, and all I really did here was I put the hinge in so it was flush against where I wanted it to be. I marked the back end of it, so I knew exactly how much more I needed to, route out. I figured it'd be easier to chisel this little bit right here rather than try chiseling the whole thing. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm just making sure that it was flush to begin with, and now I'm just making sure it can go all the way in as far as it needs to go. So I grab some chisels and just get to work. Again, not the best way of doing this. Obviously, if you're doing fine joinery, you want to do half the distance, then half the distance, then half the distance. So that was a big chunk to take off at one bit. But it's a door hinge, it's also going to get covered, so that's why I wasn't too worried about that. And squaring, make sure everything's nice and square and the hinge sits nice and flush and good to go. And I did the other three too. I didn't record. I did record them, but it's a lot to show you the same thing over and over and over. So that's why, just showed you one. I got a little bit carried away with that score line there, but again, it's all getting covered, so you're not really going to see it. And then, just moving on to the next one. All right, now that the hinges are in and they're screwed down, I just cut down some OSB. It's a little bit oversized, but I didn't have a full sheet, so I had to use 2 half sheets, but it's fine. Put them on, screwed them down, bunch of glue, made sure I didn't screw into my hinges, and then just went around. I put screws, I don't know, a lot. So I did 2 on the side, then 1 in the middle. I split those distances in half, then split those in half too, so it's a lot. Flushing up the ends. It's nice to make sure your door is square, that way you don't have to trim anything off on the sides. So Traxel made easy work of that. Then cutting down the board, that's going to be my brace piece. Remember, I planed down the sides of the door, so I also had to plane down the 2x4. So putting a clamp in here, and obviously I want clamping pressure at the middle as well, so that's why I put the little spacer board right there. So I have the clamps pushing down on the board on the end, and put that little hump right there. It's able to give me good pressure pushing the board down in the middle of the door, where you really want to have a lot of pressure, just the gravity and the glue. If I would have put them vertical like that, with my stiles being horizontal, it wouldn't have worked because I wouldn't have had any screw holes for it. So now we're just putting in the door. There's a lots of back and forth. We had to chisel out some of the door jamb because the roundness of the hinge, it made one side sit flush. I want the door to be perfectly flush to the outside of the building. That way when I put the siding on the building, it's one straight line all the way across. So there's no real, difference between the siding and the door. I want it to be a smooth transition all the way across. That's what we're doing here, is just double checking, measuring, and making sure everything's good. Well, okay, I'm in the same spot I was in the intro because I'm doing this at the same time. Hope you enjoyed the door build. If you liked it, let me know. If you hated it, again, let me know. Again, I don't care. You can do what you want. But yeah, we got a couple more stuff to get buttoned up. I'll get some more videos up for you. I think right now I have 30 subscribers, so thank you all 30 of you. You were not my friends and family, so it's nice when you have people that want to see what you do, even though I have no idea what I'm doing. So anyway, yeah, thank you all. I'm not going to say like and follow because that's just dumb. You know what to do. If you want to follow me on my journey, follow me on my journey. If you don't, fucking don't. I don't care. You do you. But yeah, that's the door. Super simple. It took like a day and a half. It would have took a day, but I stopped to let glue dry and family was in town, and yeah. Anyway, if you have any questions about it, let me know. And otherwise, I'll see you on the next one. All right. I'm going this way.